If I could have your attention here in the Media Center, we'll now continue on with today's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series media availability, and we're now joined by Jamie McMurray, driver of the #1 McDonald Chevrolet for Chip Ganassi Racing. And Jamie, once again, that #1 car shows up at the racetrack with speed. Walk us through your practices today and what you're anticipating for qualifying tonight and for tomorrow night's race at Kansas.
Yeah, it was a little bit more eventful than I wish it would have been in practice. This racetrack is interesting, and it's been this way the last couple of years. The gray area of the track has a lot of grip until you get that like last car length from the wall, and it gets really dirty up there, and kind of gives you a false sense of security. And I think it happened to Kyle. I haven't talked to Kyle yet. But I was just kind of moving up the racetrack. I was going to make a long run right there, and I got a little bit too high and got loose and ended up getting into the wall. It didn't tear a car up, but it did kill about 20 minutes of practice for us that we needed for race trim. So we switched over to qualifying trim, and the car was pretty good in qualifying trim. Both of our cars are fast again this weekend, and yeah, I mean, I feel good about going into qualifying. I think we'll be fine in the race.
Okay, we're going to open the floor for questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We're going to start in the back left with Karen.
Hi, Jamie. We've always thought about you from Joplin and Carl from Columbia and, of course, Clint from Emporia. Now with Carl out of the picture, is it the race between you and Clint to see who can win here and, claim this as like your home track victory?
Yeah, I feel like Carl and Clint play that up more than what I do. I grew up in Missouri, and that's always going to be my hometown. But I've lived in North Carolina for 20 years now, or longer than that, and that's my home, and that's where my kids are from. And I would love to win at Kansas Speedway, but I want to win there because that's where we race this weekend, not necessarily because I grew up 200 miles south of here. So I'm gonna let Clint have that hometown track thing, and I'm just gonna be Jamie.
Go next to Brett and then back to Rich.
Brett Williams, SpeedwayDigest.com. Jamie, what have you learned from Kyle Larson? I mean, I know that he's a young driver, a lot of young drivers, they talk about learning from the veterans, but what have you learned from him?
Well, the one thing that I have learned from Kyle is I grew up, working on cars and always trying to make the car better, try to make the car drive better, try to make the chassis handle better. And Kyle grew up in a totally different era where you just drive the car, and if the car's not good, you move your line around. And I feel like he's somewhat opened my eyes in that we're not always going to get the car perfect, and if the car's not perfect, then maybe search around and see if you can figure something out. I've learned a lot of things from him. Mainly probably in video games, but I have learned some things on the track as well.
We'll go to Rich, then to Jerry, and then to Todd.
Jamie, Rich Colbert, the Motor Racing Network. Next week, the All-Star Race, you're a past winner there. They've changed the things around on the format. They've got softer tires in there. Have you guys worked out a strategy to win that thing again, and how are those soft tires going to work out for you?
I have to be honest, I haven't even read the rules for the All-Star race yet. That's something I was going to look at on Monday. I know that they've changed the format a little bit. The thing I will tell you about soft tires is that soft tires, in my experience at testing, aren't always faster. So I don't know that there's a guarantee there. I don't think they've done a test there at least. So sometimes when you put softer tires on, it messes up the balance of your car, and so it's not a guaranteed faster lap. We did a tire test just this week at Kentucky, and we tried a couple of softer compounds. Some of them were faster, some of them were slower. So I think that's going to be interesting to see if the softer tire actually is quicker, or do you not want that? I don't know the rules enough to know if you have to use both of them in the race. So. Yeah, that's going to be interesting next weekend.
Jerry Jordan, KickingTheTires.net, PRN. Jamie, last week, great finish for you. Kyle's leading the points. The resurgence that you guys have had as an organization, can you address that and where your focus is headed going forward?
Well, I think the biggest thing for our group right now is to not be content. It's been years in the making to get every department at our race shop better, and it's taken everyone that works there, their ideas, and getting the cars faster. And I think what I hear a lot at the shop right now is just not to be content, that to continue to try to develop and make the cars quicker. We did a test at Kentucky this week, and I was so impressed when I showed up because our car had a lot of new parts on it. It had so many sensors on it that they couldn't even take all the data at one time. We were having to only use some of the sensors for certain runs and then switch them out because there weren't enough ports. And there's a lot of ports. There's a lot of ways to take data on a car. But our whole test, with the exception of the stuff we did for Goodyear, was all about developing and trying to get the cars better. And I thought that just listening to Matt and the engineers talk that we learned a few things. So it was a great test, and hopefully we can implement some of those pieces on our cars here in the next few weeks and continue to get better. Well, if Felix said 30, I'm going to say 15. Just going to go out on a limb here. But I honestly, I don't know. I don't have anything to do with that, and I'm not sure what they've done.
Todd?
Kind of along those same lines. I mean, Kyle's already in. I mean, how much do you guys focus, work together on trying to make sure that, get you a win, get you qualified, or is it too early in the season to start thinking that way?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, there's, I don't know that they're, with the exception of maybe being at a plate race last weekend, you really can't work together. I would never expect Kyle, if I'm running second, to pull over and let me win to lock me in, nor do I think he would even kind of do that. But I mean, the whole working together is just kind of throughout the weekend, and it's not as much with Kyle and I think, as it is with the teams. Kyle did come over to me this weekend, probably the first time all year, because of the issues they had in practice, and when we went out and made our first mock qualifying run, we were first. He came over just to kind of ask me what I thought and what would the car feel like. So there's a little bit of that, but for the most part, it's about the teams working together and just developing better cars each weekend. Yeah, and then the little turd went out and beat me, so how's that?
Additional questions here for Jamie. Well, Jamie, good luck in qualifying later today, and good luck tomorrow in the race.
Yeah, so I want to embarrass Bev Mittler here. If you can see sitting in the middle, that's Mike Mittler's wife, and she that family was such a big part of me making it to NASCAR. And I love getting to come back to these races because I get to see her. She always comes over to my trailer, and she came over right when I was walking over, and I'm like, you have to go to the media center with me so we can hang out. So, Bev, I want to embarrass you just a little bit. Are you embarrassed? Even over Carl? Really? That makes me feel so good. I appreciate that. So, let's go talk.
If I can have your attention here in the media center, we are going to continue on with today's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series media availability, and we're joined now by Ricky Stenhouse Jr., driver of the number 17 GoBowling.com Ford for Roush Fenway Racing. Ricky, fresh off of his win last weekend at Talladega Superspeedway. Ricky, what has this week been like for you, following in the footsteps of that win and enjoying that whole process?
It's been a good week, fun week and long week at the same time. Monday, Ryan Blaney and I went up to Cleveland to film American Ninja Warrior, which was fun. And then we got back and had, our team meeting on Tuesday, team lunch, and, some media and some interviews. We got to hang out at the shop with the guys, and that was good. And then had a little celebration dinner on Tuesday night, and went out with some friends, so that was cool. And then a lot of media on Wednesday, and then finally got to do some rest on Thursday. So get ready for this weekend, and now that we've been on track today, it's start of a new week, and we're looking forward to the task at hand this weekend.
Okay, we're going to open the floor for questions. We'll start up front here with Todd, then we'll go to Brent.
I got you. Go ahead.
First one was you obviously got your first win before your girlfriend, who also races,
No, we don't talk about it. I mean, we're like every other driver. Everybody wants to win. So, you know, I didn't have bragging rights with anybody else that hasn't won either. So we just go out and try to win.
And how many, was it just you and Ryan, or were there some other guys?
Just Ryan and I did it in Cleveland. Ben Kennedy did it when it was in Daytona, which was pretty cool. I wish we'd have been able to do it then, but our schedules didn't work out. And then from IndyCar, I think Connor Daly did it in San Antonio. So last year, you know, the IndyCar guys and myself did it in Indy, which was really cool, cool venue. But Ryan and I were the only one that do it in Cleveland, and we had a lot of fun with it. I'm not sure when it's going to air. I think sometime in July 27th or something. So it should be fun.
Go next to Brett and then to the back to Brian.
Brett Williams, Speedway Digest. Last weekend you spoke so passionately about your hometown, and I wanted to ask you, what was the response like from your friends and some of the people back at home after getting your first win last weekend in Talladega?
Yeah, it was cool. You know, the governor called me, invited me to lunch down in Jackson, so hopefully I can get there, do that sometime. But you know, it's cool to have a lot of friends. You know, I saw some teachers send out some things on social media, and that they were teachers of me in classes, and then just to have all your friends, people that you raced with at home, super proud of you. So that was really cool. They know that this was my biggest win of my career and toughest one. So it was cool to see the response, and made me feel really good.
Go next to Brian, then to Chris, then to Rich.
Brian Nelson with Motor Racing Network. So anytime anybody wins at a restrictor plate track, there's always the Cinderella stories and all that stuff. But you guys have really been strong all year long. Do you feel, or how do you characterize, you know, the progress you've made, and then showing up at Kansas this weekend and being strong in practice? How big was that?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, like I tell people, I was feeling really good about our season before the win. You know, that win was just, you know, put us over the top of how we feel. But we know that we still have a job to do, and that's to continue to make this organization better and our cars better, not make mistakes. You know, we know where we need to get better. The short tracks have been been really good to us this year, and we feel really good there. The speedways we showed last week, we had a lot of speed in qualifying and in the race, and so we know we need to get better on really the fast, smooth tracks like Las Vegas, Texas, and here. You know, we had a good practice session. Didn't really worry too much about qualifying, just really trying to build a notebook for the next time we come back. But, you know, I think for us, we're feeling really good with our goal bowling forward this weekend.
Chris Knight, catchfence.com. Ricky, the cars looked extremely loose out there during practice today. Is that a trend that you see will see continued into the race, even though the practice during the day, we race tomorrow night, and then have follow-up?
I hope not. They're definitely tough to drive. You know, I think right now, started practice with the truck rubber down, maybe a little bit different tire. You know, maybe had a factor of that. Once I felt like our rubber got down and we got all over the racetrack, my car seemed to get a little bit better for me. But others were still on edge. Larson texted me in between practices and asked if mine was as edgy and kind of sketchy as his was, and I told him it was. First practice, I was not feeling real well about it. I feel good with the speed that we have in our car, but it just doesn't drive very good, which is okay if you can keep it going straight. But you know, I think the less downforce, the wind's blowing pretty good out there. You know, some hard tires. You know, it's definitely tricky. We'll see how it is in the race. Generally, you know, the race starts out generally a little bit on edge. I feel like we all kind of tiptoe around to start the race just because it's quite a bit different than when we practice during the day. And then it kind of comes to everybody once we keep racing through.
And Roush Fenway Racing decided to do a tough deal and downsize from 3 cars to 2 cars last year. How much do you feel like that's contributed to the success of the team this year? Or do you feel like it's been more than that, just with the organizational changes and you guys just being more prepared this year?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, it goes both ways. I think right now where we're good is the people that we put in place and the things that we worked on in the off season. That being said, I do think it's easier to get everything done to our 2 cars versus doing them to 3. There was times last year that we had some updates that we couldn't get into all 3 cars. We had to kind of pick and choose, and so it's nice now knowing that. If they find something on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we can get it in our cars for the weekend, and it'll be in both of them. So I do think that that's been a help, and I hope that it helps us continue to make progress throughout the season, where last year we started out okay, just didn't maintain that throughout the rest of the season.
Go to
Ricky, Rich Culbreth, Motor Racing Network. Next week's the All-Star race. You raced your way in, I think it was 2013. It's got to be exciting to know that you're locked in this time around. And have you given much thought on the strategy for next week? And you think those softer tires that you're given sometime during the race is going to make a difference?
I hope they make a difference. I mean, I think tires make a big difference. Just from you can run the same compound and same structure build on a weekend and then have it different date codes, and if you have an older date code versus some of your newer date codes, the car doesn't drive near as well. So we've experienced that here at Kansas. One of the things that I felt like we had a little bit off in the first practice was some date codes on our tires, so we didn't try to tune too much around that. You put on a different set of tires for the next practice with date codes that you have the rest of the weekend, and the car feels a lot better. So I guess a softer tire at Charlotte should help quite a bit.
Go to Randy, then to Reed, then to Todd.
Randy Kovitz, this is for USA Today. A kind of combo question. Number one, do you know the governor of Mississippi, or he just happened to call out of the blue?
I met Phil Bryant before Atlanta. I went down to Jackson and talked in front of the House of Representatives, and they had me in the state capitol. So that's when I met him earlier this year, and then now we obviously got a win, and he was super excited. He's a big race car guy, loves racing.
Okay, and I guess the other thing with Ryan, that was already pre-scheduled before you won Talladega.
Yeah, it was. I got up there, and they were surprised I still showed up.
And finally, along these lines, how life's changed for you, and then you happen to get another sponsor for a little later in the season. Was that in the wake of your win, or was that in the works too?
No, that was already in the works. We've been working real hard on sponsorship, working hard on getting our cars performing better. We've been working on all aspects of our company, and for me, I would say life's changed. I still went to the shop 2 days this week, and still did all the normal things. A little bit more media. Kind of felt like back when I was running Xfinity and winning quite often, which was nice to get that feeling back, and makes you want to keep doing that. So for us, it's back to normal this weekend, and from here on out till we start winning some more.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. With the win and almost assuredly being in the playoff, does that affect and change your approach to the rest of the season? Do you start paying in particular attention to tracks like this one that are going to be in the playoff, et cetera?
I told my guys I didn't really want to change our approach to the weekends. I wanted to continue to do the same thing that we've been doing throughout the season. Try to limit our mistakes, try to keep that momentum and going. Now, we are going to focus in a little more on Charlotte here, Dover, look at the Chicago race, make sure that we focus in on that, Loudon as well. So there's definitely tracks that we'll try to build a bigger notebook when we're there on the weekend. The Michigan's not as important, even though it is important to Jack Roush. We still gotta, put all our, eggs and go into Michigan and in the basket to try and get Ford and Jack a win there, because that's important to them. So therefore, I want to keep trying to do the weekend the same as what we have been. I told the guys I wanted to make it on points. Let's be consistent. Let's make sure we're running well and not slacking off. And so I want to act like we don't have the win, and let's still try to make it in on points.
correct me if I'm wrong, but you did American Ninja Warrior last year
Yeah.
too, right? How much easier or different was it this time since you already kind of had some experience with the atmosphere and you know, did you do, and also did you do any training, additional training this year?
So last year I did a lot of training, and you know I was working out all the time, and you know went to a few different ninja type gyms, and got there and I felt prepared, and then I fell off on the rolling log, and I would say this year's course, you know, there was things that was harder, and there was things that probably weren't as hard. You know, they switch it up every year, and then every city that they do it throughout the year. And so I was super nervous last year. There was times that I got nervous this year waiting to go, but after the Talladega win, I felt a lot better. And I met a few people the year before, you know, that run some gyms that come to a lot of the shows, and they were there, so it was cool to kind of have a group of people cheering for you that you had met there the year before. Man, there's so many good ones. You know, I think the girls are really impressive that do it. I keep trying to talk Danica into doing it. I think she would do really well. But watching the girls like Casey and Megan, who I mean, who are fairly short and doing a lot of the, I mean, it's just the exact same obstacles. And so I always think that's pretty impressive.
Reed? Reed Spencer, NASCAR Wire. Just curious, with the bare white walls in the corner here, is it tougher to find marks?
You know, for me, no, because I don't use marks that often on circle tracks. You know, on road courses, places like Pocono, where every corner's quite a bit different. You know, I use some markers. Mile and a half, so I generally don't use many markers. I kind of go off of feel. But for some drivers, there's some drivers that use markers, so I'm sure it's a little bit more difficult.
Any additional questions? Let's go to Chris.
Yeah, Ricky, I was just curious, after Talladega last weekend and you got through media responsibilities and you were able to calm down, I was wondering what that conversation was like with your dad after everything that he went through to get to you in victory lane.
Yeah, it was good. You know, he was headed home on Monday and they found his golf cart, so he turned around, went back and got it. But, you know, for him, it was really cool because he put a ton of work into my career, and for him to be at my first win was super emotional for him, and I was really glad to have him there. He told me that he was having to charge his phone probably 2-3 times a day with everybody calling and congratulating him, and I think that's one of the things that he loved about the win, being able to talk to people that helped us race sprint cars and sponsored us there, and helped him throughout his career, because really my career started before I was born when he was racing, and you know, all the people that he had worked with and helped him, and then you know, that was you know, he's out doing yard work in the yard and people stopping by you know, all day while he was doing that. It was a good week for him. He came to Kansas, and so he's ready to go. I think he wants to go to every race now. I don't know, 10 or so. You know, in the Xfinity car, before I owned a motorhome and, you know, ran Cup, I didn't get a motorhome till I ran Cup, and I'd gotten him a motorhome, and he would just bring it to the track every now and then. So he would come to, I think in 2012, he came to 25 races or so, and then since I've been in Cup and have my own motorhome, he just kind of comes when he can get all his work done. So he builds engines for a living, works, you know, 16 hours a day at the engine shop, and cuts grass, and then comes here as quick as he can.
Well, Ricky, don't be a stranger in the way you're running this season. I don't think you will be. So good luck this weekend, and we'll see you later. If I can have your attention, the Media Center, we will continue on with today's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series media availability. We're now joined by Danica Patrick, driver of the number 10 Wonder Woman One Cure Ford for Stewart Haas Racing. And then we're also joined by Dr. Christine Hardy from One Cure. Danica, really cool paint scheme you have going on this weekend. Could you talk to us about that paint scheme and what it means?
Well, it's Wonder Woman, and it means that it's coming out June 2nd. That's what it means.
That's good.
And it makes sense because I'm a girl.
It's awesome.
And I think I was reading the hero card, and it talked about Wonder Woman being a warrior, so that makes sense. And oddly enough, I looked at the picture on the hood. It kind of does look like me. And then the Wonder Woman logo actually looks like my warrior logo. So it's meant to be. It was, it's really neat to drive paint schemes that draw cool attention, especially from kids. I think there's probably a lot of little girls that'll really like this paint scheme and what it means. Then also One Cure being on the car to follow another passion of mine, which is animals. Their research that they do for animals having such an effect on humans as well, seeing that the cancer treatments for animals are the same as people. So it's, again, that's why it's One Cure for all. So cool, lots of good stuff on the car.
Dr. Hardy, could you tell us a little bit more about One Cure and what One Cure does?
Yeah, absolutely, I'd love to. So One Cure is all about the fact that cancer is cancer no matter the species that the disease occurs in. And what we learn in pets, specifically dogs and cats with cancer, we actually translate that information to the benefit of people with cancer too. And by the way, that goes vice versa. So what we learn in people helps pets. Fundamental idea is that physicians and veterinarians work together to speed new treatments to help all cancer patients. So that's what One Cure is all about.
Danica, from looking at your social media feed, it's important how important dogs are for you. What's it mean to really have One Cure on the car and to be able to support such a great cause?
Well, I think that for any of you who have animals, you think that your pet's going to live till hopefully somewhere over 10 years old, like I hope for about 20 or so. And the way that I take care of them, what I feed them, I'm like, I go all the way and do everything I possibly can. I'm like, if these dogs don't live till like 16 or 18, I'm probably not going to cook their food for them the next batch of dogs that I get. But you got to do everything you can to keep them alive. And one of the things, though, that enters my mind when I think that, you hope that your dog lives to a certain age is you go, but you never know what's going to happen, and they could be 5 and get cancer, and that happens. And I would do anything possible to keep them alive. So to me, it's great that there's so much research going on, just knowing that it's just like any problem that comes about, any kind of cancer or anything like that. It's so sad, and it's so sudden, and it's something that we're all trying to find a cure for. So it's great work that One Cure's doing. It kind of sounds like cancer is cancer. I remember asking doctors many years ago. I was with a bunch of doctors, and one of my good friends had has a son still. He's fine now, but he had cancer really young. And so I asked the doctors, I'm like, he was on chemo for a year. Is that because his dosage was so low that he had to stay on it for a long time? And they said, no, kids take the same dose as adults do, and sometimes even handle it better. So the fact that cancer is cancer across the board is a positive, in that we can figure out how to cure it, how to treat it, and how to get rid of it. And that's something that I think that we can all relate to across all fronts, whether they're, your furry little friend or, well, I suppose you could probably still have a human that's a furry little friend too.
Questions for the panel? We'll start here with Todd and work our way around.
Some more than others.
I think everybody is aware that you're part of the first couple of NASCAR here, and your boyfriend gets a win last week. Ricky gets that breakthrough win. You're still looking for yours, though. So did he have bragging rights this week? Did he rub it in at all, or did he take it easy on you?
We absolutely never mess with each other when it comes to that stuff. I think it's obviously because it means so much to us that, it's a pretty crappy thing to do. Would you mess with your wife or girlfriend if it can't? Yeah. When it comes to golf or something, I'll totally mess with him. But, when it comes to something like this, No, we don't talk about that at all, and I was just simply happy for him, and my weekend sucked yet again, and well, actually, my weekend didn't really suck. I mean, I had a fine race going on. It just ended early, and so I had another terrible result, which has been the case so far this year. And but if I was going to have one race where I didn't get to all the way to the finish line and either finish the race or have a good finish or win, I'm really glad that I had the chance to watch him win. And you know, I think that was pretty cool, and that I was ready to go. And I mean, all I did was throw my tennis shoes on and run out the door, and well, I walked out the door, but got out the door and got on the golf cart and went to Victory Lane and waited for him to pull in. And that was a gift of an experience to be able to have in our relationship, because you know, most of the time, obviously, I would be dealing with my team and dealing with whatever I had going on, and I had that chance to regroup. And you know, I was fresh as a daisy. I showered and spent the afternoon standing around celebrating with him. So it was a great day, but we don't talk about that stuff.
We'll go next to Chris, then to Jerry.
Chris Knight, CatchFence.com. Danica, you had a terrific run here at Kansas Speedway in 2014. I was just wondering how you enjoy coming racing at Kansas, and do you feel like that you have a car capable of having a solid run tomorrow night to turn your season around?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know. We had some good runs and some not as good runs, and I'd say in general I don't feel all that comfortable. But then again, I just left our team debrief a little early to come over here, so we had this planned, and we all were talking about being somewhat uncomfortable, and I think we used the word puckering up, getting into the corner, as a way to describe how things felt out there. So it's so fast, and the tires are so hard that the grip drops off so quick when you go past it. So it just makes it a lot of work out there. It's very edgy, and so I don't think it's too much different for anyone, but that's how it feels. So, you know, I had a couple good runs, a couple bad ones, so we'll just have to see. I think that, you know, I didn't like how it drove in traffic all that much. So for me, I think that's what I'm focused on, is how we fix the way it felt in traffic, because that's going to be the case all night tomorrow night. There's going to be traffic everywhere, and you got to be able to move around. So I don't know. I don't know if we'll be as fast as I was a couple of years ago here when I had that solid run where I ran top 10 all night and got up to like third at one point. That was kind of a breakthrough race for me, but we're going to try, and hopefully it's the case. But, you know, effort level never changes for sure. I mean, I'm still actually probably do more to do better now than I used to. So we'll do what we can, and hopefully it pays off and hard work is rewarded.
Jerry.
Jerry Jordan, KickingTheTires.net and PRN.
Huh?
Danica, he stole my question, so I'm going to ask Dr. Hardy about the correlation. Danica was talking about cancer in animals, and how does your group work with on the human side versus the animal side to try and find a cure, et cetera, for your cause?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So as I had said earlier, cancer is cancer, and there is a foundational principle called comparative oncology, and that's the study of naturally occurring cancer in both pets and people for the benefit of both pets and people. Literally, it's that circular relationship. And there are a couple of great examples as to how dogs have specifically helped people with cancer, and I'll give you one specific example if that's okay, and that's with bone cancer in kids. So it's a pretty rare disease in people, but when it happens, it's generally a pediatric disease, so kids under the age of 18. It's very common in large breed dogs, so dogs about 50 pounds in size or larger. By the way, it happens in the same bones and the same locations. If I take a biopsy from the kid and from the dog, and I look at it under the microscope, I can't tell you which species it actually came from. It's the same disease. So typically it's a disease that when it develops, it happens in the long bones, so the long bones of the arm or the leg. And you might imagine that for parents, if they're faced with the standard of care, what used to be standard of care, which was an amputation, that's it's a pretty distasteful solution. Sometimes we jokingly say that dogs are born with 3 legs and a spare, and when something goes wrong with a spare, we can do an amputation, but that's not universally true either. So picture a large breed dog, has some problems, maybe has had 2 hip replacements, has 2 cruciate tears, and then develops cancer in a front limb. Well, we have a doctor at Colorado State University. His name's Steve Withrow, and it wasn't a new idea, but he was the first one to figure out how to remove the diseased section of bone, replace it with effectively a new strut. So imagine I have a tumor in my arm. He would actually cut out the diseased section of bone, put in either an implant or a piece of cadaver bone and put a plate over it. So you've gotten rid of my tumor, but I still have a leg to stand on. He then worked together with Dr. Ross Wilkins in Denver, and now it's standard of care for kids who have bone cancer. So with some adaptation, obviously. Yeah.
What's it called? What's that called?
It's called a surgical limb spare
I don't know
procedure.
what's the cancer called.
Oh,
Is there an-
osteosarcoma, so it's bone cancer, or osteogenic sarcoma is another word.
I'm just wondering
for
if
it.
this is the one that my friend's son had, actually, because it was in his arm. He was really young. He was 2, 3.
Yeah, it could be. It
I'm not
could be.
100% sure. I'll have to ask. It was
Yeah.
a long word that I couldn't remember. That's why I'm like, what is this? Well, anyway, even
Yeah.
if it is, if it is, wow, then that's my story exactly.
Yeah, it's really quite amazing. So that's one example of a surgical procedure. Through clinical trials, which I'm sure many of you have heard of what a clinical trial is, it's the idea of you have access to a new treatment that's not yet on the general market. So we offer clinical trials to the patients and the families that come in to see us at Colorado State University. So imagine me taking my own pet in, gives me access to a new treatment that's not yet available but is showing great promise. If we compare veterinary clinical trials to human clinical trials, we get data because dogs' lifespans are a lot shorter, 1 to 3 years, whereas it might take 5 to 10 years for that same study to happen on the human side. And we know that if it's successful in dogs, it's highly likely to be successful in people. So it's an incredible opportunity for us to learn and then speed new treatments to market to help all cancer patients, because that's who needs it the most. You're welcome.
Any
was very
additional
interesting.
questions? That's been enthralled. That was
I
very.
feel like that's like the most interesting information that's happened in this media center probably all day.
Could be. Absolutely.
How was your car today? I bet you've heard our answers before. Thanks.
Additional questions? Well, ladies, thank you for taking the time to join us today. Good luck this weekend and good luck for the rest of the year.
Thank you.